Guys, we're back, the Fintastic Four, and we're four again. Jose made it through the hurricane. He tied himself to a tree and lived through it.
100%.
Everybody's happy to
And
see
Tied
you made it
to a
okay.
potted palm tree.
it was great. Hey, literally 4 days of cleanup from Thursday to Sunday. That's all I did, clean up.
That's fun. Hurricanes are no fun. If you guys don't live in Florida or in Gulf Coast and know what hurricanes are like, you have no idea.
Yeah. It's like coming back from a boat trip and you got to process the boat. And that's it. That's what happens after a hurricane. You have to process your house properly.
Yeah, but there's like wood and debris and all kinds of stuff too stopping you, and your
Well, I
house
ended
might
up
have been moved.
I ended up power washing the house and the windows and the fence and the whole 9 yards. So
Well, we're glad you're back. We're glad you're okay, you and your family. So,
appreciate it, guys.
great news. The Dolphins didn't lose this week.
Miami,
It was a
Miami,
bye. It was a bye week. Nothing
Miami,
much happened. There really wasn't that much Dolphin news anyway. So a lot of trade rumors and stuff. And there you go.
Miami.
So we decided this week how it is a bye week and there's really nothing much to talk about. I put it out for last week for you guys to three big questions. Who's your favorite Dolphin player? Your favorite moment? And when you became a Dolphins fan? And so I say we start with when you became a Dolphins fan. And I'm going to go to Nick first because Nick isn't even from here. He's from New Jersey.
Yeah.
How did a guy from New Jersey, the land of the Jets and the Giants, and it
Right.
depends on what part of Jersey, or the Eagles,
Yeah,
how did you
that's
become a
South Jersey.
Dolphin? How did you become a Dolphins fan?
Well, I grew up in a house with my father being a Jets fan, my brother being a Giants fan, and I just went my own way. Uh, I saw it was Dan Marino, and I believe he was playing against the Jets at that time.
Mhm.
And I like what I saw. I like the team, I like the colors, the whole everything.
How old are
And I
you?
think
How old are we talking about here?
I believe we're talking like 6 or 7.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, it's around 96, 97, somewhere in
And did you get any grief for
that
being a
year.
Dolphins fan in that family, or your friends and everything? Or
No, I mean you get grief for it, but I think the worst part is when you got to go to MetLife. Those fans are rough.
oh, you poor
yeah,
guy, they
Jets
dra-
fans are the worst.
Yeah, especially then they didn't care as much.
Nick, I'm going to tell you, I have a neighbor that lives not too far from here, just 4 houses down. His name is Mitch, and he's a season ticket holder for the Miami Dolphins for years and years and years. Uh, and he's from Connecticut, and he's a Dan Marino fan too. And I find that you can find a lot of Miami Dolphin fans that are Miami Dolphin fans because they were Dan Marino fans at the time that Dan Marino was kind of doing his thing,
Mhm.
right? And so,
He just looked so cool.
he
You know,
was, he
he
was,
was slinging the ball,
he was rewriting the
doing his thing.
record books. Absolutely, 100%.
Never got the Super Bowl, but I mean, fun to watch. Fun to watch.
Yeah, he
Well,
never
you,
won a Super.
Jose, how about you? When did you become a fan?
You know what? I had to do a little research on that because I have to attribute it to who I started remembering, right? Who were the first folks that I remember? The first quarterback that I remember was David Woodley. And it was probably because of the year that we went to the Super Bowl. I think it was 81 or 82, I can't remember, um but it had to be right then because I don't remember Bob Greasy, right? And I don't remember I remember Don Strock, but always as a backup,
Mhm.
right? To some of these other players, but I don't remember Bob Greasy at all. So it had to be 1980, 1981, right around that era, and it was probably because that year we went to the Super Bowl.
Mhm. Jeff was like nodding. What do you
What is the
say?
Super Bowl?
But
What's the
hey, let
Super
me
Bowl?
tell you, I mean, that's old because I'm first generation American. So I was born in 67,
Mhm.
right? So we're talking about 13, 14 years old right in there when I first became a fan. So, I should be able to, I mean, I was like 6 or 7 when they went back to back, right? 6, 7, 8, right in there.
Mhm.
So I should remember those, but obviously my dad wasn't, my dad just wasn't a football fan,
Right, right.
right? And so the TV wasn't turning on, and we didn't know what the NFL was, So,
Mhm.
and then Miami went to the Super Bowl, and there was a lot of media and a lot of publicity, and I became a fan at that point. And then my dad became a fan shortly after that, and then the family kind of followed behind me.
Yeah, that year it was the 82 season, the Super Bowl was in 83. I went to that Super Bowl in the LA Coliseum.
Yeah, yeah.
It was kind of a Christmas present from my dad, and I got to go out there and
But interesting fact, David Woodley was picked in the 8th round.
yeah,
Right in the 8th round, and he took us to the Super Bowls a couple of years later. So it's
yeah, he
interesting.
and he was pretty horribly maligned by the fans. He treated like crap from the people here in Miami. Poor guy drunk himself to death not too long after that.
Yeah, he passed away in like 2003 or something like
Yeah,
that.
young man, liver
Yeah.
cirrhosis, liver, and he had a liver transplant, and he kept on drinking. He
Mhm.
should have won that Super Bowl.
Should
Jimmy
have.
Cephalo.
I
Jimmy
was going to
Cephalo.
say, Tony is still mad at Jimmy Cephalo for that
Yes.
Super Bowl.
I mean, he had
Dropped the touchdown
two
pass.
easy touchdown passes he dropped. And then I also blame Don Shula. That's another thing. That I was sitting in the stands. It was 4th and 1. The famous play. We all see it. We all cringe when we see John Riggins going to his left, which he'd been doing all game.
Yep.
Don
And
McNeil missed the tackle.
yeah, and our genius Don Shula decides to leave Don McNeil with a broken arm. The man is literally wearing a cast. If you look at the video, he has a cast on his arm. A little cornerback on the Redskins' left side to stop John Riggins. That's when I knew Shula's time was up. Anyway, Jeff is looking at me with hate in his eyes. Just out of camera shot, there's a shrine to Don Shula.
Right, don't start bad mouthing Don Shula. Those are fighting words right there.
Right.
He literally goes around Catholic schools trying to find virgins to sacrifice for Don Shula. Anyway, when did
I
you
do
become?
that, but it's not necessarily for Shula.
Okay, this is really gonna kill us here. Anyway.
Okay, my turn.
Give it to us.
It was the 1971 season, end of the 1971 season. 7-year-old. My mother calls me into the living room. We're living in the Chateau Le Mans in Altamont Springs, Florida, on the 3rd floor apartment. My mother calls me in and says, "Jeffrey, come in here and watch the Super Bowl." And Jeffrey's like, "What's a Super Bowl?"
Who's Jeffrey?
The championship of the National Football League, and our team, the Miami Dolphins, are playing in it. And we have the greatest head coach, Don Shula, and we're going to win this Super Bowl. So I'm like, okay, great, let's watch this game. And I watched the game, and I fell in love with the team. We lost that game, the Super Bowl, to the Dallas Cowboys. And I was upset. It was only the first game I ever saw of the Miami Dolphins, but I became an instant fan, an instant Don Shula fan. And I was upset we lost the Super Bowl. But it was okay because the next season we went absolutely undefeated and won the Super Bowl. And I didn't get to see every game because every game wasn't televised back in that time.
Oh, God,
But
yeah.
I listened on the radio sometimes, and I did watch the Super Bowl and to beat the Redskins in the 72 season. So that's not when I became a Dolphin fan, when they lost to the Dallas Cowboys in their first Super Bowl.
You're kind of like me. I go a little bit before you, where I was born in Miami, but then my parents moved up to New York and New Jersey. And then we moved back down in '69. And for the '70 season, my dad figured, well, we're Miami people now. He decided to get season tickets to the Dolphins. I had known about the Dolphins. I really didn't. I was like a little kid. I was 6 or 7, and he gets season tickets. And so starting in '70, when Shula's first season, I got to go to all the Dolphin games. And like I was totally hooked. I made my dad back then, home games were blacked out. So you either had to go to the game
Yeah, yeah.
or you bought what was called a blackout antenna. And you saw a lot of people in Miami had one. It was like a TV, because it was way before cable. You had your TV antenna, but it was like a different antenna that you pointed towards where you were by, Jose, Fort Myers. Of course, Fort Myers would show the Dolphin games because they were a different TV market. And so you pointed your antenna to Fort Myers, and you'd watch the football. You could watch some of the home games and some of the other games in Miami. And it was funny watching the home games from Fort Myers, because then you're wondering, why am I looking at a car dealership from Fort Myers?
Wow.
So my dad took me to most of the games in '70 and '71. '72, he couldn't keep me away, and I was just a Dolphin fan for forever until we had season tickets until they moved to Joe Robbie Stadium. That's a whole different issue of why we got rid of our season tickets then. But yeah, that's it. I'm an old fart, man. So it goes to your favorite moments, favorite player. Let's go favorite player. Now we all know where we're from. I'm sure Jose, your player is probably going to be Marino, right? Or maybe
Well,
Nick too.
yeah, you know what? I didn't pick Marino because I felt that everybody was going to pick Marino, right? So that's the propensity, right? To, I mean, obviously, when you say Miami Dolphins, Dan Marino is like 1, 2, and 3 as far as personalities are concerned, right? But my guy that I decided to kind of settle in on was a small little guy, right? He's basically my height, 5'11". He was 242 pounds, which is basically what I am. Like if I stood next to him right now, we would be eye to eye, right? Which was pretty slick, right? But he, again, another guy that was, he was born in '73. He was born in Texas. He went to Texas Tech. He was a Red Raider, right? He was picked in the 5th round, 154th of '96. Right. And in that season, he came out as a rookie. And the very first play, we were on defense, and this running back comes around. And before he could even make it to the line of scrimmage, he's probably 4 or 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. This little guy, this little rocket ship comes out of nowhere and just destroys this guy. And I'm like, who is this? Who is this guy? Right? Who is who is
Okay, we lost.
we got my dog going crazy, but I'm like, who is this guy? Right? Well, who is he? And the announcers came on and said, this is Zach Thomas, rookie, right? And so from that point on, my favorite linebacker was Zach Thomas for the longest time. So my favorite player, Zach Thomas, right? Small little guy. Nobody ever gave him a chance. And Don Shula gave him a chance. And he ended up being a Pro Bowler for us. Was it Jimmy Johnson? Right? Jimmy Johnson gave him a chance. And then, he ended up being a Pro Bowler for us. I mean,
Hall of Famer.
Yeah, he had 7 Pro Bowls, 5 first team All Pros, 2 second teams, 2-time alumni linebacker of the year, 2-time combined tackle leader. I mean, and the list just goes on and on and on. He's part of the Miami Dolphins honor roll, unanimous All-American 1995. I mean, it just keeps going on and on and on. So, yeah, I mean, Zach Thomas.
Can't fault that one. Can't fault that pick. Nick.
No, I didn't go Dan Marino either. I love Dan, Dan would definitely be up there for me. But I decided to go somebody a little more current,
Mhm.
somebody I actually got to see live. Uh, Cam Wake, defensive end. We had him 10 seasons. We got him out of the CFL. I think before that he was with the Giants. Then he went to the CFL.
Mhm.
We had him 10 years, 98 sacks. I really wish he would have got the 100 sacks with us. I know he
Mhm.
got 100 when he went to Tennessee for that final season, but he was just a guy who'd come out and it was like our version of Ray Lewis without all that added Ray Lewis stuff, but he'd come out, he'd flex, he'd get a sack, and he'd just flex there. And, the guy's jacked. His arms are huge. And you're like, look at this guy. He's a machine. When we talk about it, 10 seasons, 98 sacks, that's almost 10 a year. It's a pretty good resume.
Yeah.
And
He
he,
underrated player. People don't
yes.
talk about
And
him as much as they
And
should.
you know what it is? He played during one of the worst stretches. He had one winning season. He got to play with one team that had a winning
Ugh.
record, and they lost in the wild card.
Ugh.
But again, never complained. I don't think he ever held out. Nothing like that. He stayed in Miami and gave it everything he had every year.
Great pick. I like it. Hey, props to Nick on that pick. Jeff, are you going to pick Marino?
Uh, no, I'm not going to pick Marino.
Oh, the poor guy.
I can't say that. Well, Cam Wake was a Dolphin. He was my favorite as a current Dolphin. When he was playing, he was my favorite Dolphin. But my favorite all-time Dolphin is the MVP of the undefeated season Super Bowl, and that would be Jake Scott,
Ah.
the toughest football player of all time. The He was so feared in the NFL that nobody wanted to face him. He knocked players out of the game. He was so tough that his own teammates were afraid of him. And he had his roommate. His roommate was Larry Zonka. Larry Zonka was the only one brave enough to stay in a hotel room with him. Like if you got into a barroom brawl, you wanted Jake Scott on your side. You didn't want him to be on the opposite side, that's for sure. But the toughest man in football. And in fact, the week after that Super Bowl, he was named MVP of the Super Bowl of the undefeated season.
Mm-hmm.
He showed up at the Pro Bowl. And when he showed up at the Pro Bowl, he had two broken hands. Both hands were in cast, full cast. And he showed up to play the Pro Bowl, and I can't remember who the coach was that was coaching the Pro Bowl. He told him to turn around and go home because the coach said that he was not going to be the one that had to tell Don Shula that his Super Bowl MVP player got hurt even more playing in a Pro Bowl. So they turned around and sent him home because the coach was afraid of having to tell Don Shula that the Pro Bowl player got hurt. So yeah, Jake Scott, in my opinion, the greatest football player of all time. Football player's football player. They didn't make him any tougher than Jake Scott.
Great pick. He, of course, was paired as a safety with Dick Anderson, who probably was the greatest. Jake Scott was a free safety. Dick Anderson was a strong safety. And Dick Anderson, to me, was one of the greatest strong safeties ever play the game. The guy could pick. Got interceptions. I don't know how. My picks go. It was weird because I go back like Jeff to the 72, those Dolphins, 72, 73. When I first saw the question, the first guy I picked was Zonka. I mean, the guy was a beast. I mean, you just watch those films. Then I thought, no, wait a minute, no. Back then, when I was playing, Pop Warner, Little League football stuff, I was a guard. And so I always fancied myself Larry Little, who is a Hall of Fame guard. If you watch any of the highlights of Morris or Zonk or Kick running the ball, the guy in front of him is Larry Little, clearing the way.
Yeah.
But then I started thinking, and I go, no, I remember watching the games with my dad, watching the stands, and there was one player that he never made the Pro Bowl or anything like that. He was not a big name player, but whenever he was involved in a play, you heard it up in the stands. And he had the greatest nickname in football history. I'm talking about Mike Colon, Captain Crunch. Nobody ever talks about him, but you don't get
I'm
a
gonna
name
be
like
honest, I never heard him. Never heard
you
him.
don't get a name like Cap. He played for the Dolphins for 7 years.
Yeah.
You don't get a name like Captain Crunch without crunching
What
some
years
people.
did he play?
70 to 77.
Yeah, I don't
He
I don't
just
know
passed
either.
away earlier this year in April.
Wow.
He was an outside linebacker. Everybody knew about Bonacani, of course, and everybody knew about the 53 defense was named after Bob Matheson, who would come in for that famous. He wore number 53. But Mike Colon usually was sitting there he was a right side linebacker. Nobody went to his side.
Yeah. Was he part of the no name defense?
Yes, he was.
Okay. All right.
Was. He didn't
That's
get a
why I
lot of
don't know his
tackles.
name.
That's why I don't remember his name.
There you
Yeah.
go. Makes
he
perfect
never got
sense.
a lot of tackles because nobody ran to his side.
Right.
He was just one of these guys. His real name is John, but is Mike Colon. So anyway, favorite memory. Let's go, guys. Who wants to go first? Jeff, you go first this time.
Jeff, go
I'll
first.
go first this time. Favorite memory, once again, 72 Super Bowl win is Jake Scott. Once again, number 13. I should have started off by saying my favorite player was number 13, and then you would have thought it was Dan Marino.
Mm-hmm.
But it was Jake Scott. Jake Scott, with his two broken hands, makes an interception in the end zone to stop the Redskins' drive. They were driving down. They could have scored. And Jake Scott, inches above the ground, diving horizontal with two broken hands, intercepts the football in the end zone to stop their drive cold. Favorite Dolphin memory right there. I still see it in my head right now.
I think it's funny that you are a huge Don Shula fan and a Jake Scott fan, and those two guys hated each other with a passion.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In fact, they Shula sent him to the Redskins just to get rid of him.
I think it was the Raiders. Didn't he go to the Raiders?
No, the Redskins. Then the Redskins sucked when he sent them to him. Jose, your favorite moment?
There's that iconic photo of Zach Thomas, and he's perpendicular with the ground, right? He's just flying through the air, about to make a tackle on I think it's a Raiders running back, right? And he's just like this. He's just, and you can see Nike on the bottom of his shoes. That's not my favorite moment, but I just wanted to say that that was one of the most iconic moments. I got to be honest, the year that when we clinched the AFC East when Marino clinched the AFC East to go to the Super Bowl, I got to say, that was the year that I graduated from high school, and it just seemed like everything was coming together. My favorite team was going to the Super Bowl. I was getting out of high school. I mean, it was all just banging together, and unfortunately we didn't win that game, but that's it. I would say that the moment that we clinched and went to the Super Bowl against the 49ers, if I remember correctly.
Nick?
Well, for me, I'm going with one that I was not here for, but I did actually see the majority of the actual game footage. I'm going with the 1982 AFC Championship game against the New York Jets, known as the Mud Bowl.
Yeah.
So there was all that controversy leading up to the game.
The AJ Dewey Bowl, let's face it.
Yeah, that's what it was.
He had a monster game.
He went crazy.
Yeah.
But there was that several days of rain prior to the game, and then Miami didn't cover the fields. There was a whole bunch of controversy. We were trying to slow down the Jets, who at that time were faster than us with all the guys that they had. And it was basically just like a turnover fest. I think there were 10, 11, I don't know how many turnovers in that game. But Miami came out on top 14-0 to go to the Super Bowl, which they didn't win, but you had AJ Dewey. I think he had 3 interceptions and he scored one of those. So fantastic
God,
game.
I still remember that game. That was AJ Dewey was like on another plane.
And that was one. That was a game like my father used to always tell me about. Him being a Jets fan, and now me being a Fins fan. So
I'm sure Richard Todd wakes up in the middle of the night and it's cold sweat. Everyone from nightmares about that.
Great game.
My favorite moment was in 72 season against the Buffalo Bills. Larry Zonka. They even on the NFL Network, when they talk about the perfect season, they mentioned this. Zonka goes around the left-hand side, like some cornerback for Buffalo. Nobody knows who it was. Comes up and tries to tackle Zonka. Zonka hits him so hard, lays him out. The ref throws a flag. They call Zonka, a running back, running the ball for unnecessary roughness.
That's like that scene in Remember the Titans when Sunshine flips over the blitzing linebacker and everybody's yelling. He's like, it's the quarterback, coach. Come on, I'm not calling a flag on the quarterback. Right? How do you call a flag on a running back? I mean,
everybody was asking to say, how do you call an unnecessary roughness on a rough? And supposedly, like Zonka was like all mad at the ref, and the ref said, "You almost killed him."
Yeah. I'm learning stuff today.
Oh, now they wear skirts.
Yeah.
So
completely different. And you have to cover the field, you can't do that anymore.
God, this was fun. I like this. Going down memory lane here. Let's go. We played the Colts this week.
Oh.
You think they had a bye? You think they got it together?
Man, I don't know. I mean, our quarterback had another week to learn the playbook. So I think that helps him, and he was coming along in the last game.
Okay, prediction. Let's hear it. What do you say?
Okay, so I'm gonna go with the Dolphins, 21-14.
Okay. 21-14 Dolphins. Nick?
Miami Dolphins, 30-17.
Whoa. You're thinking there's going to be some offense finally.
Fireworks.
I think we're going to get it going.
All right.
Jeff?
I'm going to say Dolphins 17-3.
That's about right, I think. Yeah.
3. That's tough to do in the NFL nowadays. I'm going to go with 24-17 Dolphins.
Yeah.
It's tough because it's in Indianapolis. Hoosier Dome's never easy to play in. Even though I don't think it'll be it won't be packed this time with the way the Colts are playing. We'll see. Hopefully they've turned it around. Tua comes back after the following week, right?
Yep.
So
after that game, yep.
Not that I want to see him back, but apparently that's the plan. Well, guess what?
Well, it depends on how well Huntley plays.
But wait, has he been?
If Huntley plays all world, then we may delay Tua's return.
Has he been cleared?
Not yet. He's still got another week in the protocol, I believe.
Okay. All right.
He's on IR.
So we don't even know.
He's on IR. He's on
IR, so he can't do anything. Yeah.
Well, that's something to talk about next week because it's going to be close and everybody's going to be talking about it. So thanks, guys. It was fun. Jose, I'm glad you lived.
Appreciate it.
Do we still have a moment?
I'm glad you don't have much damage.
We're good.
Nick, say hi to everybody in Jersey for me.
I'm still in Alabama.
Oh, you're still in Alabama?
I'm still in Alabama.
You're still in Alabama.
I was wondering where those banjo sounds were coming from.
That's me.
Battle faster, baby.
And Jeff, go fix your car.
Yeah, I got my machine probably sitting out there waiting for me.
All right. Guys, if guys watching, hit subscribe, like, do all that stuff. We'll see you next week for the Fantastic Four.